Good evening, everyone. I'm Ankit, and you're watching the Indian Express analysis, which goes live every day at 4 p.m. Today is 23rd of April, and we are going to discuss important articles that I've picked up from our today's newspaper. Now, if you look at the articles, you'll see the first article that we are going to discuss. This article is about surge in gold prices. Now, in recent times, the prices of gold is rising. And because of this, many investment options have highlighted that gold is a good investment option going forward. But you also have to analyze that any commodity, if the prices of that commodity goes up, there is also a chance that the existing investors will look to sell their investment, right? So therefore, the probability of gold prices coming down in following days, it has also increased. So we are going to discuss the reasons behind why there has been an increase in gold prices and how it impacts a country like India where gold is in huge demand. Now this is important from GS paper 3 perspective. Now good evening everyone. Yashi, Lydia, Blueberry, Sheetal, Baga, Niranjan, Suraj, Soma, Baga, yes, rough day today, reading about the Pahalgam terror attacks. Yes, this is one of the situations where the country has to be unite. We have to be unite on dealing with this menace called as terrorism. Enough has happened. Enough has happened that our members of our armed forces, our civilians are dying because of this, and I strongly feel that the government should deal with this issue once and for all. Okay. Good evening, Divyansh. Nanku Tamut, good evening. Achal also good evening. Yes, it is a nightmare of having hostile neighbors, but this kind of a crisis situation will only make us stronger, and it will also strengthen our resolve to end such kind of a problem. Okay. So enough about that. Let us move again with our discussion. First article I told you relevant from GS paper 3, that is economy. Second article also very relevant from our economy perspective, that is confidence in US economy. Now going forward, you might have understood that even the government of India wants to increase the investors' confidence in Indian economy, and to bring foreign investment, to promote economic growth, confidence in economy is must. Similarly, we are witnessing that because of moves made by US government, particularly the policies of US President Trump, the confidence in US economy has shaken, and this has resulted into fall in the values of US dollar and fall in the demand for government bonds or government securities, particularly of US government. So how this impacts the world economy, that we are going to understand. This is again relevant from GS paper 3 perspective, particularly external sector, because US is world's largest economy, and you understand whenever there is a downturn in the world's largest economy, it might impact, not just might, it will impact India's economy as well. Then in the third article, we'll understand that government has imposed a safeguard duty on imports of steel from many countries. Now, as US has imposed tariff on major economies, it is expected that those economies will try to diversify their markets away from US and to emerging markets like India. So Indian government is expecting that Chinese companies particularly, they'll dump their steel at cheaper prices into Indian market, which will be quite detrimental to the interest of Indian steel manufacturer. So as to protect Indian steel manufacturer, government has imposed safeguard duty. What kind of safeguard duties can be imposed? We'll discuss it. Again, important from the perspective of Indian economy, particularly mobilization of resources, as it is a method of taxation. Okay. Then in the fourth article, we'll understand how global warming has led to increase in the levels of arsenic in the production of rice. You understand arsenic is known as heavy metal and also can be detrimental and harmful when it is consumed by human beings like you and I. So we'll try to understand this increase in pollution levels of arsenic in rice, which again is relevant from science and tech and also from environment perspective, again GS paper 3. In the fifth article, we'll be understanding UNESCO's Global Geoparks Network. Now, yesterday we also dealt with a UNESCO's initiative of register, where important monuments are being registered. Now, the Global Geoparks Network is also an initiative by UNESCO. So, we'll try to understand what this Global Geoparks is all about, and also we'll look into the body known as UNESCO, which is a specialized organ of United Nations. This again is relevant from GS paper 1 perspective, because these geoparks are essential geological sites which are important from geography. Then in the last article, we'll be understanding the government scheme of increasing the connectivity of broadband, particularly in rural areas, that is BharatNet scheme. So this again is a scheme which wants to increase the digitization in the economy. It wants to increase the levels of internet speed that is available in the rural area. So therefore, it is a part of inclusive growth, which is a part of GS paper 3, right? So these are the 6 articles that we are going to cover. Now, good evening, new joinees. Jai Shri Ram, good evening. Priyalata, good evening. Now, the notes for this session, as usual, will be available on my Telegram channel, ATS Live. This channel, you can go and subscribe to it. I also see many of the students asking the doubts. So, either I can address the doubts, and your fellow aspirants can also address the doubts. The point being, your doubts will be addressed if you subscribe to this Telegram channel, okay? Now, let us start our today's discussion. This is the first article we will start our discussion with. Appeared in the economy page, that is on page 17 today, and it says that gold glitters above 1 lakh. Now, last week particularly, we saw that the prices of gold increased for the first time. For 10 gram, the prices of gold increased above rupees 1 lakh. Now, what are the factors that has led to this rise in prices of gold? We'll try to understand in our today's discussion. Now, gold is also an important commodity in India, used by households, used by central banks, and used by financial institutions. So that is why whenever there is so much commentary on gold, we need to cover it completely from our exams perspective. Now, the context of this discussion is gold prices are glittering above the 1 lakh level per 10 gram for the first time, as the international prices have surged after US President Donald Trump unveiled plans to overhaul the Federal Reserve. Now, US Federal Reserve is the central bank of United States, like RBI is for India. Similarly, whenever the political structure of the country threatens the independence of the financial institution, most particularly the central bank, this sends negative signals to the investors. Particularly, it signals that political interference will increase, which means you can't rely completely on the monetary policies of the central bank. Also, gold consolidated its position as the best safe haven asset in the volatile global financial markets. And if you look at the prices of gold, it has increased nearly 59% since March 2024. So, for example, if you have invested 100 rupees in gold in March 2024, now you will be getting 159 rupees, which means profit of 59 rupees per your 100 rupees investment. So this is a huge profit compared to other classes of investment. So let us try to understand why is there been an increase in prices of gold. First reason, obviously, it is quite obvious from the context of the discussion, is that there is a renewed uncertainty surrounding the US monetary policy. Now, when you witnessed, even in cases of India, when RBI, who is responsible for setting monetary policy through its body called as Monetary Policy Committee, there is very less direct interference by the government. Government has provided for 6 members in this monetary policy, where 3 members are appointees of the government, but they decide whether to increase or reduce the repo rate based on their own expertise. They do not receive any guidance from the government. RBI understands the inflation level, and as per the inflation level, it tweaks the repo rate. So therefore, at the outset, independence in the monetary policy making is very essential for the health of Indian economy, and for that matter any economy, because government, it can changes the amount of disposable income in your hand through fiscal policy like changes in taxation. So when you deal with money supply or monetary policy, that is given to the central bank of a country. Similarly, you can apply this concept for US economy also. So you'd want US Federal Reserve to be independent from the interference by political class, particularly the US president. Now, US Federal Reserve has issued a warning that tariff which has been imposed by US President Trump on every of the major trading partner of US, it can threaten its dual mandate of maintaining stable prices and also full employment. Why does tariff threaten its mandate of Federal Reserve? Because tariff, wherever a tariff is imposed, it increases the levels of inflation in the domestic economy, right? Because when you impose customs duty on any imports, naturally the consumers will have to pay more money for the same item that they were paying before, which means it will lead to increased inflation in the economy. And whenever there is an increased inflation, what the central bank does to control this inflation? It reduces the money supply. And how does it reduce the money supply? It increases the policy rate, repo rate, also known as interest rate. Okay. So no doubt till here, how central bank responds to whenever there is a high crisis of inflation in the economy. So similarly, US Federal Reserve has warned that if there will be an inflation because of this tariff, going forward, we are going to increase the interest rate in the US economy, because it is our mandate to control inflation in US economy. Now this is not liked at all by US President Donald Trump, because President Donald Trump has intensified his attack on Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell, saying that why is he not cutting the interest rate? So he has also threatened that he will fire Jerome Powell from his job. He can or he cannot do, that is a different matter. So he has actually signaled his dissatisfaction that why is Federal Reserve not reducing the interest rate so as to promote US economy's economic growth. But I told you, what is the primary mandate of United States Federal Reserve? It is to maintain stable prices. So therefore, any good economist who will be at the place of Jerome Powell also will not reduce the interest rate, because it can lead to increased inflation. Therefore, this criticism of the United States Federal Reserve by the political class of United States has actually shaken the investors' confidence in the US economy. US economy, particularly through its monetary policy and Federal Reserve, which is the most powerful financial institution across the world, investors used to trust this institution a lot. But when there is a meddling, when there is a political interference, this automatically reduces the investor confidence. And therefore, concerns about the independence of Fed has also been raised. Whether or not actually today is Federal Reserve that independent as it was before, this is a big question. Therefore, this has pushed the value of dollar sharply lower. Why has value of dollar reduced? Because naturally demand for dollar has also reduced. Because why would anyone want to invest in US economy when there is an increased chance of political interference, when there is a reduced investor confidence? So naturally, whosoever had invested earlier in the US economy, they'd want to pull out their investment, and therefore it pushes the demand of US dollar down, therefore also pushes the value of US dollar down. So this is the primary reason why investors, they are looking for alternative opportunities to invest. Therefore, you will witness that global investors, they are retreating from US based assets, they are retreating from the US dollar, they are retreating from the government securities issued by US government. Rather, they want to invest their money elsewhere. And this is why weaker dollar, it has boosted the demand for gold, because you'd want to pull out your investment from US dollar and government security, and naturally you'd want to invest in a more desirable option, and here gold becomes more desirable. That is why demand for gold has increased, and it has also increased the prices of gold. Understand how this global investor, they are pulling the money out of their US market and investing in gold. Also, whenever there is a global geopolitical crisis, whenever there is a chance of global slowdown, investors, they have a tendency to move towards a very safe asset. And gold, since time immemorial, has proven to be a very safe asset, because of many high tensions that happened in the world, like Russia-Ukraine war, which has still not been resolved despite various efforts made by US President Trump. And whenever there is a global crisis going on, it will increase the prices of commodities like crude oil, okay? And whenever there is an increase in prices of such important commodity, naturally it will put inflation up, and when inflation is high, it will lead to low economic growth everywhere. So why would you want to invest in stock markets wherever there will be a low economic growth? Suppose with increase in crude oil prices, naturally this will push every other country into recession, if not recession, slower economic growth. So naturally investors will move to a safer asset, and here gold is a very safe asset, right? So that is why this is a escalating geopolitical crisis between Russia, Ukraine, between Israel, Hamas, and slowdown in the, or expected slowdown in the economy of US. Investors are moving towards a safer option. Also, because of many factors combined in total, global central banks who have various assets like US dollar, they have investments in government securities of US government, they are looking to diversify their investment away from US based asset. What is the reason? First of all, during Russia-Ukraine war, I may have told you that US imposed many economic sanctions on Russia, which also included that Russian assets who have dollar, they can't use that dollar elsewhere. Similarly, this has sent a wrong signal to other countries, that countries like India, who hold significant amount of US dollars and government securities of US government in their forex reserve, what if India was in that position? So naturally, those US dollar, those government securities, India won't be able to sell it in that case of economic sanctions. So that is why global central banks, including India, including China, they are looking to move their investments away from US based assets to another safe asset, that is gold, which India also has in their forex reserve, right? So global central banks, they are moving away. Similarly, China is a very huge investor when it comes to government securities of United States government. As China was holding huge amount of government securities, then China is also moving away from government securities of United States to gold. So therefore, big economies like China, global central banks including India, they are moving their investment from US based assets to more stable assets like gold. Therefore, this has also reduced the demand for US based assets like dollar, like government securities, and it has pushed up the corresponding demand for gold. And whenever the demand for gold is high, you'll realize the prices of gold goes up. Okay, so this is how the prices of gold has increased in recent times. Now, why is gold of such significance for India? First reason is that India is world's second largest gold market after China. For example, India's gold demand last year in 2024, it stood at 802.8 tons. This was more than 31% as compared to last year, where it was 761 ton. And this is only next to China. China's demand is somewhere between 985 tons. So India is world's second largest gold market, and you understand gold is used here in every possible case. It is used as an investment option. It is used for jewelry, as women, they desire gold jewelry much more than anything else. So therefore, gold has a very significant place in Indian culture, often been accumulated over generations. For example, you may have heard your grandmother might have some gold jewelry, and whenever your mom were married into that family, she might have passed on her gold to her daughter-in-law, in some cases even to their daughters. So that is why gold that is in your possession right now, or is in the possession of families, is not being bought by them. In many cases, they have been accumulated over generations, and therefore Indian households, they have a huge pool of gold with them, that is physical gold. Similarly, whenever I've told you there is a slowdown in the economy, people move away from the investments in stock market, they move away from their investments in real estate, and they put their money into more stable assets like gold. That is why whenever economy is going into slowdown, be it Indian economy, be it US economy, people would want to invest more in gold. And as Indian economy also, in respect of other economies, has slowed down in last few months, so you'll see the users who have gold, they are starting to pledge their gold to meet their financial requirements. Because what happens when economy slow down? Your disposable income reduces. So naturally, you'd have low amount of money left for your day-to-day functioning. And suppose, what if your family has a immediate money requirement for education, for healthcare, for other marriage related purpose? So you'd want more money. So what you do, as the prices of gold is increased, you'll pledge this gold into financial institutions and ask them the loan back. So that is why we have understood gold loans have increased, and also their NPAs has increased in recent times, which we have already covered recently. Now, during the periods of economic uncertainty like trade wars or inflation, gold is perceived as a very stable asset. Therefore, it prompts individuals to pledge their gold holdings like jewelry and secure loans from the financial institutions to meet their immediate requirement, which might be health related requirement, which might be education related requirement, which also might be marriage related requirements. So that is why Indian households have a huge desire for gold, and we have seen whenever there is a crisis situation, prices of gold rise, so you can utilize that gold elsewhere also to take money from the banks by depositing gold as collateral. Understood? Now, what should investors do going forward? This is the big question. Now, as you can understand, globally, whenever there is an increased demand for any commodity, people say, why not invest in them? Whenever stock was picking up, people say, why aren't you investing in stocks? So, similarly, you will hear now that, Similarly, that you'll hear people are recommending you to buy gold, but is it a smart move to buy gold right now? I will tell you. So you're not just getting your civil services requirement covered up, you're also getting investment advice from us. Now, what happens whenever there is a change in prices of commodity, as I've told you with any other commodity, be it gold, be it potato, whenever there is an increased demand of that commodity, it pushes the prices up. Similarly, whenever there is a reduction in supply of any commodity, price also grows up, right? Now, gold, obviously, as it is a very desirable material and gold is not available in finite material, gold you have to mine it, and world has a limited amount of gold available with them, right? So, supply always is in short supply. So, this factor is not considered whenever you are estimating the prices of gold. So, what drives the prices of gold? It is increase or decrease in demand. Now, as world economy is going slow down, US economy is expected to be growing less. That is why the demand for gold has increases, which has pushed the prices up. Now, this is due to many factors which we have already covered. But what if these factors go away in recent times, or going forward, what if these factors subside? What if US government signals that they will keep the Federal Reserve independent? So, this will improve investor sentiment in US economy's health. Similarly, what if the Russia-Ukraine war gets solved? And what if the world economy picks up? So, naturally, the demand for gold will then reduce. People would want to invest in stock markets, people would want to invest in government securities then. So, that is why going forward, it is expected that demand for gold might reduce because of improvement in macroeconomic financial conditions. So, going forward, how should you consider gold as an investment option? Now, whenever a price of a commodity, for example, gold, it increases manifold, that we have understood in last year, it has increased more than 59%. So, investors who are holding the gold right now, they would want to make profit out of this increase in prices, right? So, therefore, they'll start selling this gold to make profit. And whenever you start selling the gold, naturally, the demand for gold reduces. So, therefore, it will also push the prices down in coming days. So, you will see from the peak high, when it went above 1 lakh for 10 grams, gold has reduced somewhere. Why it has reduced? Because people have sold their investment of gold, which has reduced the demand for gold. So, when it comes to short-term investments, it is not a very smart thing to do right now to invest your hard-earned money into gold right now. But what about long-term investments in gold? What about you're planning for a retirement and you'd want to invest in gold? Then gold is a very good option, because we have understood in many years, for example, take 10 years period, gold prices has increased in last 10 years. And similarly, it is expected going forward in next 20-30 years, the prices of gold will only increase. So, if you are planning to invest in long term, gold is a very good option. But what you have to do, you do not have to invest your entire money right now, because you understand the prices of gold in short term might reduce. So, what you can do is you can invest smaller amount of money through systematic investment plans. You can invest it through ETFs, so as to protect your investment and take care that your investment is secured on a long term basis, right? So, this is how your investment options in gold should be all about going forward. From short term perspective, it is not a right thing to do. From long term perspective, say 10 years, 20 years, it is a good thing to invest in gold. But please remember to invest in small amounts right now. Suppose you have 1 lakh rupees to invest, don't invest 1 lakh rupees right now entirely. Take SIPs for smaller amounts, say 1000 rupees every month, 2000 rupees every month, whatever you can spare, okay? So, this is our today's discussion regarding the increase in prices of gold. Now that you have understood the topic or not, let's see whether you are able to solve this particular question. Well, with reference to recent surge in gold prices, consider the following factors: weakening of US dollar in international currency. We have to estimate which factors have contributed to increase in gold prices. So, weakening of US dollar in international currency market, yes. So, investors have moved their investment from US dollar to gold. Rising geopolitical tensions and uncertainty over US monetary policy, correct. Decline in global central bank demand for gold reserves, this is incorrect. There is an increased demand of global central banks, including RBI, to invest in gold and keep physical gold with them. Persistent inflation concerns and fear of global economic slowdown. Yes, whenever there is an expectation of global economic slowdown, investment in gold increases. So third is not right. So you can eliminate these two. First is right, therefore option B is the right answer. All of you, Baga, Bhanu, Aanchal, Yashi, Reshma, Lydia after a long time, Priyalata, Sheetal, Uzma, Ruchi, all of you have gotten this right. Now let us move to next article. This article actually talks about investors' confidence in US economy, very closely related to what we have covered, but also it provides us many newer developments. So therefore this becomes important from our exams perspective, and this appeared in the explain section of the today's newspaper, which is on, in Delhi edition, it is on page 19. So whenever I quote the page number of the newspaper, I quote the Delhi edition's page number. So there might be a chance people reading other editions of the Indian Express today, this page might be located in other page. So please don't get confused. This I have picked up from Delhi edition newspaper. Okay. Now let us understand the context of our today's discussion. This context says that all benchmark stock market indices in the United States, that an S&P 500, Nasdaq 100, Dow Jones Industrial Average, Russell's 2000, you understand what is stock market indices, right? I've already told you how Sensex or how Nifty 50 in India are different and how are they constituted. Similarly, US also has many different kind of stock market indices. Now, all of these indices on April the 21st, they fell between 2 to 2.5%, which is a very large amount of money for a economic or a macroeconomic climate like United States. Now, even the investors, they have sold their US government bond, and US dollar continued to weaken against all the traditional peers as compared to Euro, Japanese yen, Swiss franc, British pound. Now, the essence of this discussion, why the stock market, why why there was so much selling in US government bond, why were investors moving out of US dollar, was that investors' confidence in the management of US economy, it continues to plummet, it continues to go down, and that is why they are either selling their shares or they are selling the US government bond security. So what is the reason? Why is there decline in investors' confidence? So let us consider all the aspects one by one. First aspect, I have already told you, Trump is undermining the US Federal Reserve, that is undermining the independence of US Federal Reserve. Now, why is Trump undermining the US Federal Reserve? US Federal Reserve, what it wants to do, it wants to control the inflation. And how it can control the inflation? It has to increase the interest rates in US economy. Whereas what does US government want? It wants to reduce interest rate, so that by reduction of interest rate, it will promote what? US economic growth. Okay. So these are two different ideas that both of these institutions want to do. Now naturally, US Federal Reserve, like RBI also, it is an independent policy making institution, so its independence is very crucial for investors' confidence. So whenever political class, they are interfering in the independence, it sends wrong signal. That is why this has also led to decline in confidence of US economy. Other factor is that Trump has proposed trade deals with many countries. Why has Trump, I've already told you this, why has Trump imposed tariffs on other countries? Trump's art of negotiation is very simple. First he threatens, then he implements something to elaborate his threatening, and then expects the other country to come begging it to him that please sign a trade deal with us. Similarly, Trump is wanting to sign trade deals with all the major economies with which US trades. It includes Japan, it includes China, it includes economy like India. But you understand, to relax the imposition of tariff, Trump has given a 90-day postponement or a reprieve. But you understand, trade deals to get signed, it takes years for the negotiations to happen. It has taken years for us to negotiate with other countries with which we have signed trade trade deals with. Similarly, whenever we have to sign trade deals with US, or US has to sign trade deals with other countries, it will take years to negotiate. So technically 90 days is not a sufficient time for US to sign a trade deal. That is why investors think that this 90-day reprieve that Trump has given on imposition of tariff, it is not enough, and therefore increase in tariff is bound to happen, which will lead to inflation and naturally slow down in the economic growth in US economy. That is why this proposed trade deal has not happened. Similarly, it is expected that when Trump has made tariff its primary driver of foreign policy or trade policy, naturally the other countries would reduce their tariff, but to control imports from US, they'll start implementing what are known as non-tariff barriers. Now, non-tariff barriers are various bureaucratic or legal issues that could involve hindrances to trade. Suppose a country like India, they impose health related or sanitary or phytosanitary requirements on US commodities. Say that only those items has to be imported in India which is not a GM crop. So US will have to provide a certification, and such measures increase the cost for imports also, and this will promote lesser exports from US, right? So that is how these non-tariff barriers will also hinder the US exports to other countries. Therefore, it is expected that non-tariff barriers will be imposed like countries like India, like China. Therefore, this signs or this highlights decline in confidence in US economy. Similarly, it will also impact American consumers, because American consumers, naturally they were the ones who voted for Trump, but when Trump imposes tariff measures, it leads to increased inflation in US economy, and whenever there is an increased inflation, naturally the amount of money that you will have to spend on other items will reduce, and naturally the consumers of American market will feel the pinch. Similarly, due to slowdown in the US economy or imposition of tariff, many corporates, they have started to show that their financial health is not good. Companies who are making huge profit, their profits have come down. Companies who are making less amount of profit, now their profits have turned into a loss. So that is why corporate earnings have sent a bad signal, and this bad signal means that going forward this might become worse, and that is why investors have tried to put their investments away from US market and away to gold and other commodities. Understood? Sir, why franc? Well, SDR is not a currency per se. You can't invest in SDR. You can keep the money in IMF per SDR, but you have other important opportunities also, right? So therefore, Swiss franc, etc. are a very good investment opportunity. Now let's see if you are able to solve this question again. This is a different question, need not worry. सारंग नहीं दिखाई दे रहा आज. Where is Sarang? Sarang, usually Sarang and Bhaga are the first ones to answer any question. They are very attentive in the class. We have to consider the following factors that have contributed to fall in investors' confidence in the US market. Lack of new trade agreements with major US allies. This is correct. You understand trade deals take long time to sign. You need years to negotiate a good trade deal. So 90 days deadline is not an actual deadline. Rising investors' concerns over independence and functioning of US Federal Reserve, increasing non-tariff barriers leading to higher consumer prices in US, and strong quarterly earning performance of major US tech companies. Now this is incorrect. Major US tech companies have also showed that their earnings have reduced. So fourth is not a right. 1 to 3 is right. So option A is the right answer. All of you have gotten this right. Bhaga, Banu, Reshma, Achal, Lydia, Yashi, Sheetal, Soma, Uma. Yes, Reshma also correct. Now, this is external sector that we are dealing with. Suppose the economy, you'll see the questions majorly are from Indian economy. But what about US economy? What about other major economies? They also, whenever they change their interest rates or whenever their economic growth is good or bad, it automatically will impact Indian economy, and that is why such topics are also important from our exams perspective. Particularly in the prelims, you'll see the questions from external sector are quite huge in number. And we cover external sector entirely in the economy classes, which are available for April morning batch right now in our P2I foundation batches. Now currently the batch is already started on 21st of April, but if you take admissions as quickly as possible, you won't lose out on any important classes, as the classes will be made available to you. Now, how to take admissions in the courses, what kind of courses you have to opt, this is the slide that you need to watch. If you ask me my recommendation, Diamond option is the best one, as it provides you every kind of a benefit that is available on the StudyIQ IS platform. But how to take admission? Let me tell you the way to do that. Now go to our website StudyIQ, click on the website. What you will need to do, you need to create the account. Now I'll also highlight you one thing. Rank 12 this year, Miss Ashi Sharma, she was a foundation batch student, online foundation batch student, and she had taken admission in 2022. Similarly, you can also be the one like her. You can also be in the top 100 or top 20 ranking if you take admissions and if you follow your classes diligently, solve your test, all of which is available, and top the tests which are happening regularly at StudyIQ. Now, to take admissions in the batch, what you need to do, click on explore courses here, but I am telling you to take the admissions for English batch, which is where I teach. Now, to take admissions in the English batch, you have to click on UPSC IS English, click on this first tile here. This is an April morning batches which have already started, and the admissions for this batch will close on 30th of April. Now, right now, this is available at 41,999 for diamond courses, but let me tell you a way where you can get discounts on this amount. Click on buy now. Here you will be given an option to add promo code. Click on this, and on the left, enter coupon code called as ATS Live. It is flashing on the bottom half of your screen right now, okay? So click on apply. As soon as you click on apply, see the discount now is available for 7,000 rupees, and the diamond batch is available for you at 34,999. Similarly, if you want to take admissions in platinum or gold courses, discounts here also are available, but the most important thing is that you'll have to write the code ATS Live to get these discounts. And please use that discount to get admissions and be like the toppers like her who have taken admissions in our batches, okay? Now, moving forward with our discussion, the next article will deal with that Indian government has imposed a 12% safeguard duty on imports on some steel product. Now, this news appeared in yesterday's newspaper, but as you understand, because of want of time, we had not covered it. Now I am covering it because it is an important topic. Now, to protect domestic steel industry from a surge in low cost imports, Indian government has imposed 12% provisional safeguard duty on certain non-alloy and alloy steel flat products. What are the products that the government has imposed duties on? Not important. What is important is safeguard duty. Now, there are two types of safeguard duties that are usually imposed. First is anti-dumping duty. What is an anti-dumping duty? Suppose if I manufacture a steel with a cost of say 100 rupees per kilogram. So naturally, the cost of manufacturing is 100 rupees. So I will be selling the steel at a price which is more than 100 to make some profit. Okay. So this is a conventional understanding of doing business. But in some cases, we have seen to make profits right now or to drive the competition out of market, some companies or some countries, they take loss for a short term amount of time and sell the steel at a price which is less than their cost of manufacturing. So suppose if Chinese companies, they start selling the steel which cost them 100 rupees per kilogram to manufacture, and they start selling them at 90 rupees per kilogram, naturally it will put Indian domestic steel manufacturers at a disadvantage. So this is called as dumping, which means you are selling the product at a loss so as to drive the other competitors out of market. So as to protect a domestic industry, the government legally can impose a anti-dumping duty on such products, which is sold at a price lesser than their manufacturing cost. Another safeguard duty is countervailing duty. Now, what is countervailing duty? How is it different from anti-dumping duty, right? Countervailing duty is when suppose I am manufacturing the steel at 100 rupees, but the actual cost of manufacturing might be high. Suppose I will be using electricity to manufacture steel, but what if government is subsidizing the cost of electricity to me? So naturally, the cost of manufacturing overall would not reflect the actual cost of manufacturing, right? Because I am being provided goods and services at a subsidized cost which I am using to manufacture a steel, for example electricity, right? So because of government subsidies, there might be a case that my manufacturing cost is less. So as to protect such subsidies and lowering of prices because of such subsidies, the government also can legally implement countervailing duty, right? So anti-dumping duty is when the cost of steel is in the market is less than the production cost, and countervailing duty is imposed when government offers subsidies to the manufacturer which pushes their overall cost of production down. So that is, these two are the examples of safeguard duty. Understand? How to console my buddy who has landed IRS? Well, IRS is a good job, man. Tell him to, if he is not happy with IRS, take entry in IRS and then prepare next year for IAS or IPS. But IRS is a good job. Trust me. Understood what is countervailing in anti-dumping duty? Any doubts, or should I move forward? So I'm assuming no doubts. Now, steel industry in India, why are we imposing anti-dumping or a countervailing duty, which is a safeguard duty on steel products? You have to understand the steel industry for that. Now, India is world's second largest steel producer after China. The top 5 producers of steel in the world is China, India, Japan, US and Russia. Now, China is by far the largest producer. Earlier, Japan was the second largest. Now, we have surpassed them in the past 2 to 3 years. Okay. Now, top steel producers, you understand, China, India, Japan, US and Russia. Now, the crude steel production in India was around 125 million tons. You understand how much China's crude steel production was? It was more than 950 million tons. So, you understand how much steel that China produces, and that is why it is expected that China might dump these steel into other countries, including India. Now, major steel producers in India are government PSU, SAIL and private companies like JSW, JSPL, Tata Steel, etc. And why is this sector important? Because directly and indirectly, this employs over 20 lakh people. So, employment is a very big opportunity. That is why we need to keep Indian companies afloat. We need to protect Indian companies for cheaper imports from especially like countries like China. Okay. Any doubts in countervailing and anti-dumping duty? I'm asking you again and again. I need you to answer in the comment section. Now, what are the recent challenges that the Indian steel industry is facing? First, naturally, the cheap or the surge in cheap imports, especially from countries like China, South Korea and Vietnam. Now, why are they surging or increasing their imports into India? Naturally, because they can't now export their steel to countries like US because it has imposed tariffs on them. Okay, that is why this is one of the problems, that is Indian companies are facing an unfair competition from these countries. So as to protect these companies, now India has imposed safeguard duty. Another factor is price volatility in global market. Now, steel is a very desirable commodity and every quality of steel is in high demand in the world. So, for example, steels that are used to manufacture, say, automobiles, they are in huge demand. Similarly, steels that are used in our utensils also, they are also in huge demand. Also, steels are used in construction of infrastructure, etc. Therefore, steels are in high demand. But in recent times, we have seen that the prices have quite become volatile. And whenever price volatility increases, the profits of the company, they decrease. And naturally, profits decreasing is a bad sign for any company and you want to protect the companies. And also in recent times, we have witnessed that there is a high input cost because companies, they are moving away from the usual imports or usual inputs that used to rely on like coal, etc. Because company would want to manufacture a steel that is not using such fossil fuels. Therefore, in recent times, you'll see that the blast furnaces which are used to melt the iron ore used to make steel, those earlier used to be powered by coal. Now they are being powered by cheaper and the greener source of electricity like green electricity, okay, or renewable energy. So that is why it has led to increase in import cost. And also logistics, that is transportation of steel, has also, the cost of transportation has also increased. Why it has increased? Because I told you, Red Sea option of exporting through Suez Canal it has become disrupted. So therefore you have to send it to other countries with a longer route, and that is why it has increased the cost of logistics. So these are the problems that have been faced by steel industry in general. So this brings my attention to what is green steel. Now green steel is actually a steel not green in color, rather it is a steel that has been manufactured without using any fossil fuels. So suppose if you are relying on powering your blast surfaces on say coal, or you are relying on natural gas, therefore these are examples of what? These are examples of fossil fuels, and globally there is now an increased demand of green steel which are using renewable energy, which are using clean form of energy to manufacture the steel. So therefore using alternative energy sources like hydrogen, like coal gasification, and even electricity for producing the steel, this means that the steel is a green steel. Okay, understand the difference. Countervailing. Well, suppose the cost of manufacturing for steel is 100 rupees per kg. Okay, so to cost the manufacturing I might be using electricity, right? But what if the electricity is provided by the government for free or for at a lower cost? That means government is providing subsidy in me manufacturing the steel, and naturally this will put the cost down. So say after government subsidy I will only be, the cost of manufacturing the steel would be 90 kilograms, right? So naturally I will sell this steel at a cheaper price in the market. So this subsidy which the government is offering to me, which has allowed me to reduce the production cost, it is an unfair subsidy if I am exporting the steel into other countries, right? So that is why to control or to offset this subsidies given by the government, other governments can impose a countervailing duty. Understand now, Achal? Okay, now let us move to the next article. This talks about climate change leading to rise in arsenic levels in rice. Now, why is arsenic level in rice increasing? Because recent study has highlighted that climate change is likely to increase the contamination of arsenic in rice, right? So this brings my attention to the key findings of the study. Now this study has said that whenever the carbon dioxide levels and the temperature rise, at the same time arsenic levels also increase in the rice. Now arsenic, it comes from soil and water, and wherever rice is grown, now whenever you flood the fields with water, whenever you are planting paddies, therefore rice is usually grown. It makes it easier for plants also to absorb arsenic from the soil and water which are there in the fields. Okay, and countries which are growing more rice through this process of flooding the fields with water, like India, like Bangladesh, like China, like Vietnam, like Indonesia, they are more at risk of increasing levels of arsenic in rice. Now arsenic is a heavy metal and therefore it is dangerous for human consumption. So let us quickly understand the few details related to arsenic. Now arsenic is a toxic element found naturally in soil and water, and this is from where the contaminations are usually happening, and also it comes from industrial pollution. Now in form of arsenic that builds up in rice, it is called as inorganic arsenic. It is harmful especially to humans, and eating rice with arsenic levels for a long time can lead to cancers. It is carcinogenic in nature. It can lead to skin cancer, bladder cancer, and even lung cancer. Also that can create heart diseases, diabetes, problems for women who are under pregnancy, weaker immunity, etc. So therefore it has a health risk. Understand? That is why we won't want arsenic in our rice. Now sorry, this is a question that I forgot to edit. Moving to another question. Article. This article talks about UNESCO's global geoparks and areas or geoparks from North Korea and Saudi Arabia has recorded their first entries into the global geopark initiative. And why is this is a news? Because UNESCO has added 16 new sites across 11 countries to its global geopark networks. So in this regard, what becomes important? UNESCO and global geoparks network, right? So let us quickly understand both of these topics. Now UNESCO, it is known as United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. It is a specialized organization or agency of the United Nations. It was founded in 1945 as the successor of earlier body known as League of Nations International Committee on Intellectual Cooperation. Now currently UNESCO has 194 members and 8 associate members, and one of the members since its inception has been India, and this is headquartered in the city of Paris in France. Okay, so this is what you need to remember about UNESCO. India is a member, where it is headquartered, and it is what kind of a body? It is a specialized agency of United Nations. Now coming to the Global Geoparks Initiative. Now UNESCO's Global Geoparks, they are single unified geographical areas where sites and landscape, they hold international geological significance, and they need to be managed with a holistic concept of protection, education and sustainable development. Now these parks, they started to be allocated from 2015 onwards, and at present there are 229 UNESCO global geoparks which are spread across 50 countries. But what you have to remember, India does not even have one site which is included in the global geopark list. Understand, these are sites of international geological significance and they need to be preserved. Now the key features of any parks that are included in that it recognizes first of all their geological heritage. Second, it promotes sustainable development, education relating to the geological features, tourism in this area, and also involvement of the local community. That is, whenever any area is designated as a protected area, you understand naturally it has a tendency to exclude people from it, which includes people who are dependent on those very lands. So therefore this initiative, it encourages participation of local and indigenous communities in maintaining the cultural and scientific tradition, and whenever tourism or education initiatives will happen, naturally it will benefit these local and indigenous communities. Okay. Now let's see if you are able to solve this particular question. I'll get out of your way. Now, UNESCO Global Geoparks are designated sites recognized for their international geological significance and aim to promote sustainable development through education, tourism. Correctly, India currently has one site listed under the UNESCO Global Geoparks. Incorrect. The UNESCO is a specialized agency of United Nations which is headquartered in Rome, Italy. This is again incorrect. It is headquartered in which city? Is headquartered in Paris. Now, which of the following are incorrect? You have to identify incorrect one. Second and third are incorrect. Therefore, B option is your right answer. Yes, all of you are right. All of you are right. Now, moving to the last article, this I have taken from PIB, and you can say it talks about a government scheme known as BharatNet. So, let us quickly understand what this BharatNet is all about. Now, I told you currently what the major people who have high requirement of internet, who are living in urban area, what they are doing, they have broadband connections installed in their houses. But what about rural people? They mostly are relying on the mobile internet. But what about you have a large requirement of usage of internet for throughout the day? So you can't rely entirely on mobile internet. It provides you how much? It provides you 1, 2, 3 GB a day, not more than that. Beyond that, you have to pay extra amount of money, which can be quite much. But when you are provided with broadband connection, your problem will be solved. But the problem is, for commercial companies like Airtel and Jio, it is not a very financial viable thing to do to lay down their optical fiber cables and provide internet, especially broadband internet in rural areas, because in general the demand of broadband internet in rural areas is somewhat less than urban areas. So this was the problem, that government wants to increase or provide broadband connection to the people living in rural area, but private companies were willing to provide the connection. So government came up with the initiative, why don't I lay down the optical fiber lines, and then it will be quite cheaper for the companies to provide the internet in rural areas. So this is what the BharatNet does. It provides affordable high-speed internet access to every gram panchayat in the country, and the nodal ministry for this scheme is Ministry of Communication. It provides internet access by laying down of optical fiber connectivity to how much gram panchayats? To 2.64 lakh gram panchayats. Also, it provides connectivity of optical fiber to remaining non-gram panchayat villages, which are approximately 3.8 lakh on demand basis, which means if the village raises the demand, then government will provide them in the non-gram panchayat villages. Now, this is executed by a special purpose vehicle known as Bharat Broadband Network Limited, and the money for the scheme comes from Digital Bharat Nidhi. What is Digital Bharat Nidhi? I'll tell you. Now, this scheme has been implemented in 3 phases. First phase was naturally the phase where foundational network were being laid down, and this connected 1 lakh gram panchayats by utilizing the existing optical fiber network. Similarly, the second phase, it connected the next 1.5 lakh villages by using optical fiber, and when the villages are in isolated areas, there the radio and satellite technologies were used to provide the high speed internet. Whereas the third phase, it is the phase where future proofing of the network will be done, which means they will be provided with higher bandwidth and better technology, and also to ensure that the last mile connectivity is provided without fail. Also, the focus is to improve accessibility and also the reliability of the connection. Okay, so this is how 3 phase of the scheme has been implemented. Now comes the funding part. It has been funded by Digital Bharat Nidhi, which is a pool of funds generated by charging 5% of universal service levy of the adjusted gross revenue of the telecom operators. So, be it BSNL, be it Vodafone Idea, be it Reliance Jio, or be it Airtel, all of them, they are providing 5% of their adjusted gross revenue, and this money has been put in Digital Bharat Nidhi, and the money is being used from Digital Bharat Nidhi to fund the scheme. Now, this earlier there was this Universal Service Obligation Fund, and this has been replaced by Digital Bharat Nidhi, and this was done through the Telecommunication Act 2023, which replaced the USOF through the DBN. And the mandate of this DBN is to promote access and delivery of telecom services in underserved rural, remote and urban areas. Understood this? Is this a PPP? No, it is solely a government initiative where a special purpose vehicle is implementing it. What private companies can do, they can use the optical fiber infrastructure by paying some fees to the government and can provide services to the rural areas. So, the cost of laying down of the optical fiber network, it has been borne by the government. So, technically government is, what you can understand, government is laying down the road, and private companies, if they have to send trucks to it, they have to pay the toll to the government. So, this is how you understand this. Okay. Now, this is the question for today. And I think the time for the session is over. So, I'll want all of you to comment the right answers in the comment section. And also, if you haven't done it already, please do make sure to hit the like button, as hitting the like button encourages the reach of our video, which we need very much right now. And I'll see you again tomorrow at 4. So, please have a very good evening and a very pleasant good night.